I felt bad inside. It's like, yeah, this is not going well. I actually felt like I wasn't playing. So I played my first game with my new Core Necron list, and I did lose. However, was my list any good? It's coming right up.
Necrons!
Nick speaking, and welcome to this video. Right, today I'm going to reflect after my first game with my new Necron core list. The aim of this video is to share my thoughts and feelings before the game, during the game, after the game, and looking forward to how I might change my list. I'm hoping that this video will help you reflect on your games, whether you win or lose, and hopefully teach you to improve as you move forward. I'm going to break this video down into 3 parts. I'm also going to be reflecting on 2 of my previous videos. One about the actual list itself that I made, and of course the actual battle report. I'll link both of those videos up in the description below if you haven't seen them yet. Okay, so part 1, my pre-game thoughts. So I made a video all about my list that I was going to take, my new core list, and I put that up on YouTube, and I was playing Richard. Richard I play very often, and although he has lots of armies, he's currently playing orcs, and he is a very good orc player, coupled with the fact that the Orc Codex is pretty good at the moment, and in particular it's very good against Necrons, so I'm always up against it when I play Richard. Now, we chose the mission before we actually played the game, and the mission was Overrun. It was the only mission actually that we hadn't played yet. So Overrun was the mission, and we knew that beforehand, allowing us to come up with some battle plans and select our secondary objectives. Now, it's fair to say this mission isn't particularly suited to either of our lists. However, I felt that it was suited to my list a little bit less, especially how I want my list to work. I talk about how my list works in that list video, but I had to adapt it slightly for this game. The objectives are quite spread out, and there's 3 on one side of the board and 3 on the other side of the board playing Dawn of War. So I decided to use my scarabs to take the objectives, the big squads of scarabs on the 2 outside objectives, and then the small squad of scarabs with the Scorpec destroyers, as in my original plan, on the centre objective on my side of the board. Then I had to work out whether I was going to play offensively or defensively. I know that Richard's army is very fast, so I had to take that into consideration. One idea was to give My Will Be Done to both units of Wraiths, have the command protocol to give me the extra 1-inch movement, so I had my 6-inch movement plus the 1-inch and the 1-inch, and then of course their normal movement, and basically charge Richard turn 1. However, Richard is a very canny player, and I know he's thought out this mission quite a lot, all the different scenarios, and he would have planned for me doing a first turn charge. So my plan was to advance to the middle of the table, bearing in mind there was no objective in the middle, and basically just sit there and hunker down and say to Richard, here I am, what are you going to do about it? He would have had quite a huge threat there with my Wraiths and my destroyers all raring to go, and of course there'd be nowhere near the objective, so he would have a choice, take my objectives or obviously go for my central blob, which would then threaten his objectives in turn 2. Now, in terms of secondary objectives, I went for the objectives which I'd already pre-planned for the army. Stranglehold, because we were going for objectives anyway. I then went grind them down, because this army is designed to kill things. And then I went for Bring It Down, because Richard had some copters and some buggies and some trucks in there, so it seemed to make sense as well. It's quite a nice sort of attacking list, and hopefully I'll be killing stuff. Richard went for Stranglehold as well. It made sense, we were playing the objectives. He also went for Raise the Banner, which is great when you've got lots of units to do that. and then he went for, can't remember what it's called, but the one where you basically need to kill wounds, and then you add them all up and divide them down at the end, which was a perfect one for him. I think not assassination, can't remember what it's called, but anyway, he went for that one, which was a perfect one because of course I had lots of wounds, and then with my RP getting them back, he could build up some good points there. So a good choice from Richard. I think Richard had the edge on me slightly with the secondaries, but I felt I took the best ones that I could. So I was ready for the game. We both decided that going second would be better for how the mission objectives works, giving you a little bit more control. And we rolled the dice and I got to go second. Okay, so let's move into part 2, the game itself. Now, Richard took the clan Snakebites. I think it was Snakebites. It's the one which basically most of his army I could only wound on a 4, which is a fantastic one to have against my particular list because I was basically strength 6 on most of my guns and most of my close combat. So only being able to wound on 4s, that was a great clan trait for Richard to take and made my list, well, it basically impacted my list from the off without me doing anything at all because it just took some of my potency away. So that was concerning. So I had my pre-game move, and whilst I was hoping to go first and push everything forward, in the end I had to just jiggle around a little bit and just move back slightly just to keep a little bit more distance from Richard. Richard is very fast in moving and assaulting, especially when he calls the war, so I had to be careful, but I couldn't really stop him doing it. I just made the charges a little bit longer than maybe they could have been if I'd moved forward. Now I did have to move my wraiths forward a little bit because I'd left my characters in a long line with the wraiths and hope that I could get the sort of advance in turn 1 as forward as I could. So I had to rejiggle that slightly, and I left the wraiths a little bit exposed than maybe I could have done, but I think Richard would still have got into the wraiths even if I hadn't done that. So in turn 1, Richard was as aggressive as he always is, pushing his units forward. He did the jump as well, getting his units nice and close, and then he opened up fire, taking some wounds off some of the miniatures, nothing unexpected. And then he did an assault. He got into my wraiths, got into my scarabs on the right hand side, and then he tagged my destroyers, which was really annoying because obviously it meant that I couldn't shoot, and I didn't have my command protocols to fall back and shoot until turn 3. Maybe that was a mistake, I left it a little bit late, but I had other plans. Analysing the first turn very closely, maybe I could have just had my scarabs and destroyers slightly further apart to try and stop that tagging. Also, I think maybe I should not have moved my scarabs backwards, although it did make the assault range more difficult with all of the movement that Richard had with his advance and assault. It probably wouldn't have made much difference in terms of successfully assaulting me, but what it may have done is may have left my scarabs more on the objective, because at one point, I think it was turn 2, he controlled the objective, or at least it was drawn, and that stopped me holding an objective for stranglehold, whereas if my scarabs were on the objective I would have had more than him. So I think that's what I learnt from the first turn. I spent my first turn reacting to Richard's first wave of miniatures. I nearly killed everything with the exception of one orc still locked in combat. I could have put my Scorpec destroyers into that unit and killed the unit outright, but I didn't. I thought the wraiths would have done more than they did, but I think I didn't take into account the fact that I can only wound on 4s against this army, and that made quite a big difference. However, I pretty much cleared everything out, which was great, but then it came to turn 2, and Richard did his second wave, again coming in, assaulting me, tagging all of my destroyers and just making it really, really hard. And I have to be honest, at this stage, of turn 2, I wasn't feeling very good. If I'd been a player which gives up very easily, I could have easily have just given up then and said, yeah, that's it. You know, there's no way I'm going to win this. You've got total control of the game. I felt bad inside. It's like, yeah, this is not going well. I actually felt like I wasn't playing because Richard was in total control. I was just reacting to what he was doing. None of my plan to do what I wanted to do with the list was happening. I got very unlucky with Illuminor. Turn 1, I tried to buff the unit of Wraiths and I got +1 to ballistic skill and they have no guns. And then turn 2, I tried to buff the other units of Wraiths and I got ballistic skill again. So it just wasn't really happening for me and I was feeling a bit down, let's say. However, I've got good experience and I did soldier on with the game, and the fact that we pre-arranged to play this game. I was going to play it out to the end. I wasn't going to just give up, and of course I was making a battle report as well. So I soldiered on in turn 2 and I concentrated on Richard's second wave of units, trying to remove them. It wasn't until turn 3 that I did remove them and also have the fall back command protocol, that I was actually able to free myself up and actually start playing the game and going out and trying to get mission objectives. I sent the Wraiths out to bring it down by killing some of his buggies and also trying to get onto Richard's objectives. The score was very close pretty much throughout the game actually, because I did actually score more primary points than Richard, but Richard outscored me on secondary. Basically had better secondary objectives. Not that I took bad secondaries, I did actually max out on Bring It Down. I got Kill More bar 2 turns, and of course Stranglehold was probably my downfall just because Richard had the board control. But the score, 88 to 82, just 6 points in it. And looking back at the game, I could have got those extra points. Just a few things happened during the game. Turn 1, my heavy destroyer shooting his exposed character on his objective. And Richard rolled a 6+ invulnerable save to stop me killing him. I think I would have killed him. I had quite a lot of damage there. But yeah, Richard rolled a 6. And later in the game, when I shot at a different character, but again a lonely character on an objective, and my damage let me down on that one and I didn't kill him outright. That would have stopped Richard getting those objectives, and also I lost out on one objective on the right hand side with those scarabs, whereas if maybe I'd moved them forward more onto the objective, I would have taken the objective away from Richard. So very, very close, and potentially I think I could have swung that around to a win, even though I had quite a disastrous first 2 turns. Okay, so part 3. Let's have a look at my list. So, on reflection, I did feel that maybe Illuminor was restricting me slightly. I like his augmentation, although in this game it did nothing. I'm wondering if I'm better off with 2 Technomancers, one to go with each destroyer unit so they can move around and I've got a little bit more freedom on the board. However, I felt I didn't actually play the list how I wanted to play it, pushing forward with the Illuminor there and those destroyers in the central position, and I think it's too early to change to 2 Technomancers. I'm going to give Illuminor another chance. Now if I did go for 2 Technomancers, I'm going to still want my command barge in there, so I think the thing that I'll have to do is take a patrol detachment, which means I'll have to have some troops. The cheapest troops is Immortals, so I'll have the command barge in a patrol detachment with some Immortals. I'll have to reduce some of my other numbers to make up for the points, probably drop a Scorpec destroyer, a couple of scarabs here and there just to make the points up. Additional Immortals might be nice in the list. That's what I'm thinking about the future of the list. However, it's far too early to change the list. And this is something I want you to take away from this as well, because play one game with a list and then lose or even win, it doesn't tell you anything about that list. It might show you a few tweaks that you could potentially do, but you have to play a lot more games than just one game with the list to really hone in on how that list works. Don't give up after one game, and indeed if you keep chopping and changing your lists each game, then you're never really going to learn your army that well, the ins and outs of how each unit works with your list and also against all different types of opponents. I mean, yes, obviously having different lists will give you a chance to play different units, but the best way to learn, the solid way to learn, is to have a list and keep playing it as much as you can. And that is what I'm going to do. Now, if you haven't seen the battle report or the list building video, then here they are for you to check out.